Hey everyone. Can everyone hear us? Awesome.
Great. Can you hear on this end as well?
Can everyone hear Natalie?
Great.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, we had some audio difficulties getting on, but definitely want to welcome everyone to the webinar. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today to how to effectively recruit ambassadors for your brand. I am Danny, Demand Generation Manager for Social Ladder, and definitely, grateful for you to be here today. Wanted to go over some of the agenda for the webinar. First, we'll go over some housekeeping items. Then we'll go over introductions. Then we'll do the presentation. Then we'll do key takeaways, and we'll do the raffle winner at the end of the presentation. So several housekeeping items, where to field questions. So everyone has access to the question feature. We just ask that everyone wait to the end of the webinar to ask the questions to Natalie. If we run out of time and can't address your questions, we will reach out directly to address any questions that you might have. And then we will announce the winner of the drawing for the $100 Amazon gift card. So with that, the creator economy has exploded, creating a massive opportunity for brand marketing thanks to thanks to the emergence of social platforms like TikTok and Instagram. The creator economy is a $100 billion industry and continues to grow over 50% year over year. It offers brands a unique and impactful channel for brand awareness and demand generation at a lower cost in comparison with traditional marketing channels. Influencer and affiliate platforms are everywhere. However, they're designed for professional creators, which make up only 5% of the creator economy, leaving 95% of the creator economy that is made up of amateur creators. This untapped potential presents another unique opportunity for brands to find and connect with communities of amateur creators that are more authentic and more closely aligned with the brand. As someone in a marketing leadership position, how would you manage, measure, and optimize creator marketing programs to fit all use cases? Here at Social Ladder, we approach creator management as a holistic solution that works for all creators and transcends all use cases. From employee advocacy, influencer management, and customer advocacy to affiliate marketing and brand ambassadors, our platform helps brands streamline every creator program. Social Ladder is uniquely positioned as a true all-in-one creator management platform. From amateurs to professionals, creators are in our DNA. Through our discovery capabilities, brands can identify creators that are likely to be valuable ambassadors using our AI machine learning algorithm. Through our onboarding and activation features, marketing teams can build communities, assign tasks, and reward all under one roof. This can be done either through the mobile application or the embedded web experience. And finally, our custom analytics and reporting features enable brands to scale efficiently and double down on what's working. And with that, I will hand things off to you, Natalie.
Thank you, Danny. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie, and I'm very excited to be sitting here with you all today and discussing one of my favorite topics, which is recruitment. So I have actually been on the client side with Social Ladder, exactly where many of you sit today. And I've also worked as a strategic consulting partner with over 30 clients with Social Ladder over the past few years. And the reason I started consulting is because, candidly, spent a lot of time and money working in-house to try and figure out what the best way was to scale and manage an ambassador program. So, and kind of finding that secret sauce. So when I started consulting, I was excited to have the opportunity to work with brands to get from A to Z as effectively as possible. And in my opinion, one of the most crucial elements of running an ambassador program is recruitment. So that is why I chose this topic to go over today, and hopefully get your program moving in the right direction. So there are quite a few different types of ambassador programs that we see today. The three that I want to first talk about with you all, and probably the most common, are college ambassadors, customer advocacy, and field marketing. So a little bit about each of these. College ambassadors are probably your most commonly used type of ambassador. College ambassador programs can be very beneficial both to brands and students. Brands get real-life advocates to promote their product or service in a densely populated group of potential early advocate, loyal customers. Customer advocacy is, to me, the most obvious and lowest hanging fruit. It's a lower touch method of an ambassador program. If people want to promote your brand, and they already probably are, why don't we give them a place to do so and continue to incentivize them to continue to promote your brand in the future? Lastly, field marketing. This is the most traditional form of ambassador marketing. When you think of hiring brand ambassadors to represent your brand in a city, at events, concerts, markets, etc., you see these people out and about in your town all the time. They're highly trained on your product or service, and to do this, it is a heavier lift in terms of hiring and training, but it can have a huge payoff in the end. So now I'm sure your biggest question is, how do we find these people? Let's dig in. So I'd like to cover some of the common obstacles. And I'm sure a bunch of you sitting here today have many far beyond these four that we'll first just touch on, but feel free in the end to ask any other questions. But these are the first four that I hear the most. First of all, bandwidth. This is definitely the most common obstacle I see. If there are any marketing managers sitting here today, I'm sure you understand this. When your company one day on your totally full plate then says, okay, now you're going to run your ambassador program as well. And at this point, everyone is aware that your brand needs an ambassador program. They need UGC. They need advocates. And in an effort to make this happen, this new initiative was probably given to you, who's already overseeing multiple channels of marketing. What I'm about to say is very important. And one of the key things that makes an ambassador program successful is the personal connection an ambassador experiences with your brand. If your program manager is spread too thin, the program oftentimes loses steam. Next, jumping in before setting the stage. This is something that I'm going to bring up quite a few times within the presentation today. Another common pitfall I see. And I know, again, we're all very excited about ambassador marketing, and we want to just jump right in and start recruiting those ambassadors, sending out messages on Instagram. But before we do that, we need to take a few steps back. So building an ambassador program, I like to say, is like building a mini company within a company. You're hiring and managing people, real life people, to execute on marketing initiatives. You're paying them to do so. Sounds kind of similar to your role, doesn't it? So we need to think about, we need to put similar thought towards it, just as you would to hire someone internally. Before starting an ambassador program, we almost need a business plan. We need to think through all of our different operations to make this successful. So you think about hiring and recruiting and managing people, that's HR. You think about paying these people and managing your finances, that's the finance department. You want to look at the marketing initiatives, you need data and analytics. And then we'll also get to the marketing. So I want to make sure that we are thinking through all these different elements before jumping in. Next, the concept of trust and brand recognition. You may be a 1-month-old startup or a household brand name. Both come with different challenges and opportunities. I'll talk a little bit later about my time in the early days working at Bumble and how we used our ambassador program to help us become a household name. Or if you already are a well-known brand, how does the ambassador program make your brand feel more personal and local, like your brand is in your consumer's neighborhood, eating at their restaurants, speaking their language? A lot of national brands will go out and put a blanket campaign out, but how can you use your ambassadors to think local? Last but not least, the fear of scaling issues. So you've hired a couple ambassadors, everything's going great, but wait, what if it really takes off? What will I do? How will I manage that? So in the next hour, I'm going to give you the roadmap to avoid some of these common pitfalls so you can become an ambassador recruiting expert and save your team some time and money. Does that sound good? Okay, great. So when thinking about building an ambassador program, as I mentioned earlier, brands tend to jump in before thinking through some of those key elements we discussed. Most importantly, who do you want to represent your brand? Oftentimes, an interaction with a brand ambassador could be the first time a consumer is introduced to your brand or product, or most likely it's the first time they've met someone behind your brand. Your brand ambassador at that point becomes the face of your brand. And even more so than many of the employees sitting in your office or maybe on this screen right now, that first impression really can make or break your brand. So ambassadors should exude your brand values and culture, not just once, but at scale. So of course we can go out and find one or two people that we think are the perfect representatives for you, but what happens when we scale to the next city or the next country? How do we maintain that consistency? So I'll talk about a personal case study here about my time working at Bumble. And how we were able to scale and keep that brand consistency. So during my time there, I launched the Postgrad Ambassador Program. And really the whole premise behind us starting this was we had seen success in our college ambassador program. And at this point had really only done marketing through big PR agencies in major cities. How could we go in as a brand who really relied on localization and personal relationships? How could we go in as a brand and create local communities and establish that trust within our company? And if you think back to, let's say 7-8 years ago, dating apps were a dirty place and you didn't really want to be on them. So how could we get people out in the field to then say, okay, Bumble is different. I met someone behind it. They were wonderful. I trust this brand. I trust that I could meet someone that could be right for me. So the way that we did that is we went out and hired a local community marketing ambassador to represent our brand in each individual city in the US. And within that, they were able to be kind of our key person in that market that we could go to and say, what's cool here? What's relevant here? Where do we need to be? Those elements that for myself sitting in Austin, I was not the expert in Philadelphia, but I could find that right person who was, that I felt like was a great representation of our brand. From there, we were able to create a hierarchy where the entire program scaled all through an ambassador program without hiring many internal people. And by finding those first few ambassadors that I felt like were the perfect representatives, they helped recruit for us from there to find more people like them. So that is one of my favorite types of recruitment once you have that first group. And just the impact, an example of the impact that we were able to see by doing this is this Kendall Jenner versus Caroline Babb example. So we had put all of our pennies in a jar to get Kendall Jenner to post on behalf of Bumble. And the post goes live at the same time we had started this ambassador program. And we kept asking people, and how did you hear about Bumble? And they would say, oh, this girl named Caroline Babb told me. And we'd ask the next person, and they would say, this girl named Caroline Babb told me. And we're like, who is this person? And she is just you and I. She is one of our local ambassadors. But what that showed us is that a personal connection to someone who feels like you or I goes so much further than someone that we know, was paid $1 million to talk about this. So that authenticity behind your brand goes a really long way. And who you put out there makes the biggest difference. The next point I'll get to here is we were actually able to use this ambassador program to launch Bumble's first non-English speaking market. So at this point, our ambassador programs had scaled to Europe, and actually before it scaled to Europe, we went to Mexico. And before we decided to hire a PR agency like we had done in Europe that wasn't successful, we decided to go and put 4 ambassadors in Mexico City. And at that point, you know, we could have a pretty low budget feel on the market, see what we could create through these ambassadors and get real interaction from the consumers there. Just by putting those 4 ambassadors down there in the first quarter, we actually saw 36% month-over-month growth above an average new market launch for Bumble. Again, really leaning into those personal, meaningful connections rather than just throwing a bunch of money at something and putting a big name on it. So that was a long-winded case study, but hopefully that helps give some perspective about where you are today, maybe with your brand, and where we can go. And I also want to premise by saying this: when we were launching these local markets, no one knew what Bumble was. So it really was me calling random people and, you know, telling them about who we were and what we were doing and why they needed it in their market to really help establish that household brand name. So now let's get into defining your ambassador. The more we define who our target ambassador is, the more targeted and successful our recruitment strategies can be. In the long run, by honing in on a more specific recruitment criteria, we can guarantee higher engagement and retention of these ambassadors because they're the right fit for your brand. So it's really a win-win on both sides. So the first thing I recommend doing is creating a persona. If you remember back to, if any of you studied marketing or advertising in school, they would ask you to create consumer profiles or personas. The same is true here. We need to know who we are marketing to or recruiting before we can make a plan for how to engage with them. Think about who your ideal ambassador is. Just a hint, this might be exactly who your brand's customer persona is. Or it might even be yourself. We want ambassadors to be current fans of your brand or people who you have identified will be fans of your product or brand. They might not just know it yet. Next is defining criteria. Are there any specific criteria required for your brand and program, such as college versus non-college? Do they need to be of a certain age, 18, 21? Is your target demo within a set parameter of age? Is it male versus females, geolocation, social media following, a certain interest? I would make a list of all of those things so that we know what we're looking for. Last is going out and finding real life examples of your ideal ambassador. Once you have a couple of those people pointed out, you can really go after more people like them. Okay, so remember what I mentioned, I said I would bring this up a couple times about jumping in before setting the stage. Here are some strategies that can help keep you on track. On the left-hand side are some items I recommend for staying organized and on track for recruitment. Setting weekly outreach goals, setting weekly and monthly recruitment goals, clearly communicating these goals with your team, and have a weekly check-in on your progress to goal. You want to make sure you're putting a lot out there to get a lot back, and hopefully less is more when we do have this targeted recruitment strategy. Now, we'll take a look at what I like to call a phased approach. So you'll want to determine which methods will get you to your first group ambassadors most effectively. First, with which methods may be better suited once the program is active. We'll discuss these methods a little bit more in a couple of slides. Okay, it is time to put your sales hat on. So if you think you are in marketing, you are now also in sales. And unless you have hundreds of ambassador applications waiting for you, you are actually selling them on why they want to be an ambassador for your brand. Fortunately or unfortunately, ambassador programs have become competitive. So, you kind of have to think about what your pitch is and what that outbound sales process looks like. So here are a few tips for how you can get set up for creating outreach templates and hopefully get optimal responses from that. So I recommend creating a template. This is not so, I don't know if any of you guys receive these messages, but You get those messages on Instagram that say some brand trying to get you to be an ambassador that they've sent to 1,000 other people, so you don't respond. We don't want that version of a template. I templatize to save your time because I know it is precious. But really make sure that you have a crafted outreach message and then personalize it from there. So you want to make sure you have everything included, just as you would in a sales outreach, like what's in it for them, why this program over many others, of course, about your company, why you chose them is a big one. I think these days, people on Instagram, people who are potential ambassadors put a lot out there. And so I'm never shy about acting like I didn't see what their Instagram profile is about. I'll even hint on something they just posted about, or told them why I think they're a great representative of our brand specifically, making it feel personal. We want to include what the ask is. Again, what's the hook? We're back in sales. And then how to join and what those next steps are. So I would say most importantly, make it feel personal. Even if you did send a similar message out to 1,000 people, that is extra couple of minutes that you'll spend doing research on them and making it personal will go very far. Now it's time to reach out. So when I was managing the program at Bumble, I needed to manage this entire process on spreadsheets. And we had thousands of ambassadors and probably tens of thousands of people we were reaching out to. Now, a good amount of this recruitment process can actually be tracked within Social Ladder using their application feature, which Danny will run through in a minute. However, for outreach management, I do encourage you to keep an updated sheet. It can be, a Google sheet or an Excel sheet to manage prospects with status updates, reminder to follow up, a little notes about them. And speaking of following up, don't be afraid to follow up. We're back in our sales seat. And in a traditional, SaaS sales position, for instance, they encourage you to reach out 11 times before you stop. So I would say 2-3 times is probably a great place to start.
Piggybacking off of what Natalie was saying earlier, a big part of streamlining the organizational flow of your ambassador program begins with discovering application. Social Ladder's application module integrates into the storefront. It is here where ambassadors provide their contact information, directly connect their social accounts, and agree to terms and conditions. The flow continues to the candidate review, which is where the ambassador applications are enriched with our discovery module. This enables your team to view ambassador engagement rates, quality of content, and more. After the review, the outreach happens, with your team inviting candidates with a fully branded welcome email. After onboarding, ambassadors are greeted with Social Ladder's ambassador experience. Their dashboards are integrated into the storefront, showing them where they stand and what tasks are due. The organizational flow ends with the admin portal, where your team manages, analyzes, and scales your ambassador program based on data insights from Social Ladder's robust reporting and analytics. If any of our guests would like to see a live demo, please reach out. Natalie, I'll send it back over to you.
Okay, great. And I really recommend using this this application feature. I've worked with a couple of clients using it, and it really helps streamline that process. Totally on a personal note, but highly recommend it. Okay, so depending on which type of ambassador program that you are running, an interview or an intro call may be a crucial next step. So yes, I get it. We talked about bandwidth. This does seem like probably a heavy lift on time, but I promise in the long run, it will really help. And you also may see some drop off in your lead flow here. However, that is actually a good thing, because if an ambassador is not willing to schedule a 15-minute call with you, they're most likely not going to put in the effort towards your program either. This is a great opportunity to meet face-to-face, really get a feel for them to see if they'll be a good representative of your brand, educate them on your brand, program expectations, and most importantly, this helps establish rapport and trust. So I mentioned earlier that we get into the methods of outreach. And if you're a newer program, you are trying to gain traction, I recommend starting with the tactics in the outbound category on the left. And before we jump into all the fancy tactics, I want us to think simple. Who do you have in your network, or even one connection away? Don't be afraid to ask friends, family, or coworkers for referrals. Everyone knows someone you don't know. Another good place that top of mind that I just worked with someone on is actually asking your customer service team. If they have people constantly coming to them, people that are repeat orders, that can be a great place to start as well. From there, you can move into some more targeted outreach through online research and social media channels. Once your program is up and running, it's time to start marketing the program and moving into some of these inbound channels on the right. Current ambassadors are a great way to do so. Having them promote the program to their networks and send quality referrals your way is actually my favorite way to find ambassadors that are sure to be a good fit. You can also use more traditional forms of marketing to send people to your program application or landing page, such as running ads on social platforms and email marketing. So this may seem a little bit out of place because it's not technically in the recruiting realm, but behind recruitment, onboarding is the second most important element of building an ambassador program, if you ask me. As the program scales, you want to make sure your brand stays consistent, as we talked about, and we're always putting our best face forward in the field. So I put together some steps here to take to make sure this recruitment process is really tied up with a bow. So you want to make sure these ambassadors are as highly trained on your company, brand, and product as any employee sitting at HQ. Building a robust training manual covering your brand history, company values, product information, and then getting into their role specifically as an ambassador. I do recommend taking a training manual quiz, or that the ambassador takes it, which can be set up in Social Ladder. And this will really make sure they understand the key components that you want them to hone in on. And most importantly, make sure they actually read the training manual that you spent a lot of time building. This next piece is kind of up to you and your brand and the type of program that you're running. But what we're seeing today is that hosting an onboarding session is another crucial piece, similar to the interview or the one-on-one call, really to get this trust and rapport established with the ambassador. It's obviously a great opportunity to get to know them, have them ask any questions, go over the training manual, but that personal connection that at this point they will not only make with you, but with the brand will really help tremendously with retention and participation in the long run, even though it's timely on the front end. Lastly, ambassadors love camaraderie and feeling like they're part of something larger, which they really are. And they love to meet one another, get ideas from each other, and even collaborate, which is another great engagement tactic for the long run. Danny, sending it back to you.
Hi, everyone. Key takeaways from the webinar. We'll send everyone a copy of the deck slides, and also you'll receive an automated email with a recording of the webinar. And then we'll also send everyone an ebook with best practices on ambassador recruitment. So now I'm opening up the floor to questions and thoughts. Anyone have any questions for Natalie?
Are we able to rewatch this video, Danny?
So Natalie, we have a question. Any recommendations with making sure not to give away too much or too little in terms of prizes?
Yes, that's a great question, Emily. So of course there's a fine line here. And my recommendation is to not give any hard numbers in terms of prizes or rewards or cash incentives, to give you enough flexibility in the program, especially if you're just getting started. You want to kind of take a pulse on the first ambassadors you bring in to see what does incentivize them versus what does not, and don't want to be completely stuck to, but you said you'd give me $100 a month. So I would keep it, vague in the sense of hard numbers or items. However, maybe have examples or cost up to or greater than a certain number that you have in your budget. And of course, making it enticing, but not too strict.
We have another question from the audience, Natalie. Have you ever tried posting a job post on Indeed, LinkedIn to get social media ambassadors?
Absolutely. This is a great recommendation for once your program is up and running, and you can actually link the ambassador application in there. It's a great way to kind of market your brand, drive inbounds, and even put some dollars behind it if you really want to drive more ambassadors to your program. However, for a general ambassador when getting started, I would really recommend targeted outreach, kind of like we talked about when you really are honing in on who that is and going after them yourself. I just see that drives a more quality ambassador, at least in the beginning. I think that I always say the first 10 ambassadors you bring on are the most important because they really set the tone for your program and will help with referrals and recruitment moving forward. However, if you do have a tiered ambassador system with more of an upper level in the program that does have more responsibilities, maybe it's even on a payment retainer, that is a great opportunity to post a LinkedIn or Indeed post for those sorts of roles.
Awesome. Thanks, Natalie. Another question, any advice on program refresh? We would be transitioning existing ambassadors we have been managing manually, potentially to Social Ladder.
Yes. And this is actually something that I experienced myself. So absolutely understand this. And candidly, at Bumble, we probably transitioned our program once a year because, ambassador programs are constantly changing, always evolving, and they're so nimble, and that is one of the strengths. So I feel like we were a revolving door in terms of that. But in terms of transitioning onto Social Ladder, this is something that will be hugely beneficial to your ambassadors specifically. It's going to make their life much easier depending on how you're currently managing the program, but it's super simple on their side. So clearly communicating to them how this will benefit them in the long run and them as an ambassador, saving time, making it easier, doing it on the run, all of those sorts of things. And I hate to say you probably will see some drop off just because you are moving on to a different platform and actually takes people actually have to do something to transition, which all of as ambassador managers, it can be difficult to make people do things. So I guess the good side of that drop off is that probably is your bottom 25% that aren't your most engaged ambassadors anyway. So it's kind of a good time to sweep the bottom out and put a fresh new batch in at the top.
Awesome. Thanks, Natalie. We've got a lot of good questions here. Do you recommend reaching out to people who are ambassadors for other brands that are non-competing, or is it beneficial to have ambassadors that are ambassadors just for your company?
It's a great question. I kind of think both. We don't want people who have, hashtag ad or hashtag ambassador all over their feed because, no, they're not Kendall Jenner. However, the authenticity is a little stripped from that person's account, just in terms of social. But if it is someone who is passionate about the brands they work with and genuinely, authentically wants to promote them, and that's why they're a brand ambassador for many things, it can be beneficial because they kind of know how programs work. They know how to talk to people. They know how to sell things. So, making sure it doesn't look too paid or forced, but as long as the other brands' posts seem to organically intertwine into their personal feed or personality, I think it can be beneficial as well.
Awesome. Got another good question too, Natalie. How would you handle getting rid of brand reps who are not doing the monthly requirements and or those who have been in the program since the beginning, yet their following is only 200 to 300? And since they have grown and since the company has grown, they are posting but are not making anything in return for the business.
One of my favorite things. So what I like to do, and this is something you can do moving forward if you haven't already, but I like to put in their contract as well as in the training manual that if you do not complete any challenges for 2 consecutive months, or you do not meet the requirements of the program for 2 consecutive months, you're automatically removed from the program. And we say this very loud and clear. Of course, there is a caveat to that, in that if someone is communicating with you and saying, hey, I need to take a break because of this reason, or this is going on, we want to be there as a friend and a partner to them and be understanding of that. But if someone ghosts you and doesn't do anything for 2 months, they're out. It's not worth you keeping them in the program. They're dead weight. You're paying for their social ladder seat. So I would just have that as an automatic rule moving forward. And maybe once a month you go and you sweep those people out. And they've been warned from the beginning that those are the terms of the program, and that's kind of it. And then next part of this question here, the people who have been in there from the beginning but don't have many followers. So with this, if those people are very dedicated to your brand, if they are active ambassadors, they're completing challenges, social isn't everything. And they're probably talking to people they know and promoting your brand. If you think that they are a genuine ambassador of your brand, I would keep them in. I think it's also good for kind of the overall happiness of your program. It's kind of like at your company. If one of the initial employees gets let go, it kind of is not great for the culture. I think the same thing goes for ambassadors, as long as they are pulling their weight. So I don't think social following is everything. However, if they are just in the program and not really doing anything, then maybe that is just a kind of a conversation to be had, or new terms that go in as you move forward with the program.
Got another good question, Natalie, for you. Do you recommend a code of ethics for your ambassadors and any templates you can provide?
Absolutely. So code of ethics, there's 2 parts of this that I want to hit on. First of all, brand ambassadors, and as more and more ambassadors or more programs are out there, ambassadors have a choice of any program that they want to join, more or less. So something that can make a program stand out and keep ambassadors engaged is having a mission first program. And if your company is mission first, and I hope that your company has a code of ethics, the same should go for the program. So in my opinion, an ambassador should be held to the same code of ethics and be working towards the greater mission, just as any of the employees at HQ are. I would definitely put that in the training manual. It was at Bumble, one of the first slides of our training manual was the code of ethics, and what those values were that our brand ambassadors were set to represent at all times. And that was something we really held true to and let ambassadors go if they had crossed those code of ethics. So that is another thing that you can put in your termination agreement. Is, if they've crossed these lines, they're automatically dismissed from the program. And just on this note, since we've got 2 questions kind of about releasing people back to back, another rule of thumb that I have just seen to be true over and over again is, these are ambassadors. We can have pretty cut and dry termination terms. And if there is an inkling that someone is dishonest or turning in content that's not theirs or creating drama within the program, whatever it is, I would cut it as soon as possible because in my personal experience, anytime that I have given a second or a third chance, the same behavior has continued. So I would cut it early to not have greater losses later on.
Awesome. Final question, Natalie. How can you ensure that your ambassadors stay true to your brand ethos, especially as your program continues to grow and individual outreach might become difficult? It's a good question.
Another great question, and kind of segueing from the previous. So definitely keeping your brand and your ethos and your ethics all at the top of the program at all times. So this is something that should be woven through from your initial interaction with them to the onboarding to checkpoints at all times within the program. And maintaining something that I had said earlier about spreading yourself too thin, maintaining an ambassador program is really where things start to slip. And someone might join the program that wasn't a good fit and you're not aware of it. So I really encourage to have at least some knowledge of most people in the ambassador program. Social Ladder was something that was super helpful to me in growing and scaling. I know that a concern that we had internally while bringing on a platform, and I've heard other people have the same concern, is if we have a platform like Social Ladder, does the personal interaction get lost between the brand and the ambassador? And from my perspective, it actually enhances it, because some of the more tactical issues that you're needing to discuss with ambassadors can totally be managed within the platform, where when you are interacting with the ambassador, it can be more meaningful. It can be more about your brand, and making sure that consistency is there. So I think that is helpful. The other part to that is creating a hierarchy within your program, where you do kind of have a check and balance system, because as you scale, we scaled our ambassador programs at Bumble to 7 different countries, all under my hands. And that is the way that we were able to kind of have all eyes on everything at all times, was both with Social Ladder and having that technology piece supporting it, but also having those personal relationships where even if you were a base level ambassador across the country, you had someone to report into and someone to report into who then reported into me. So I felt confident in our consistency, and that our brand was out there in a great way.
Awesome. Thanks, Natalie. Thanks for the insights, and thanks for the questions. Those are all great questions.
Thank you, everyone. Those were fun.
Now, time for the giveaway winner drawing. So I do have the names of everyone who registered for the event here in this bowl. So I'm just going to randomly draw out a name. Looks like we have David Bracken. David, you are the winner of our $100 Amazon gift card.
Woohoo!
I guess he is here.
That's awesome.
Awesome. David, we'll email you the gift card this week. So congratulations on the prize. And that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. And Natalie, thank you so much for your insights and your experience. And this was a fun event. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Super nice to meet you. Thanks to the Social Ladder team and to Danny for having me and for all your great questions. If anyone needs to get in contact with me, you can contact the